go through the merger. Now, there are a lot of compliance businesses may have to fix, okay, may have to do, after incorporation. So once you've incorporated your business, it doesn't mean that that is all of it. There are some other things that you have to do continually, okay, to having that business in continue, okay, over time. Now, the first things first is like, for example, just like in Nigeria, we have it. There are some things that you may have to do, but they would have to they will want to ask you to get them. Is like a checkmate. For example, you want to, after you're done with incorporation, you want to open a bank account for the business, right? But while you're opening the bank account, the banks are asking you for this. So in other words, it's a way of them checkmating the system. So I'm going to start with that, and then from there we'll also continue. For instance, let's suppose you incorporated a business on maybe a real estate firm, and then you would want to open up a bank account. Now, firstly, the bank will ask you for a TIN, so you have to have a TIN, tax identification number, and then of course you can even take it higher to also fully register with the Federal Inland Revenue Service, or with the Inland Revenue Service in your state, so that you can actually get to file your taxes and do everything that has to do with any kind of tax you may have to pay depending on your business. And then secondly, they would ask you for, depending on the business, actually, they may ask you for a SCUMO, the money laundering certificate, the anti-money laundering certificate that they usually will ask for businesses. You may have to provide that as well. And then you may have to also provide, maybe if you are a certain kind of business, maybe under, well, the banks may not ask you for this anyway, but looking at these two are major for rather opening up a bank account for most businesses. There's some other ones, maybe if the sector you are in is towards the food and drug sector, they will ask you for a NAFDAC license, you see, or maybe you are under the telecommunication sector. They'll ask you for the NCC license, that permits you to do this kind of business, or any kind of industry that you are in. There is a certain kind of license that your business should have. And then, of course, with the CAC too, your incorporation is not the end. There are things you also have to do with the CAC, like filing of annual return. Maybe you want to change directors, you want to change shareholders, all of these things. You can still do that, with the CAC. You can file all of those things with the CAC. And most of them are, of course, you really would have to follow the guidelines according to the CAMA. Okay, not knowing them, if you don't know them, you may have to pay penalties, okay, for when you now want to now file. Maybe, for example, imagine someone who files an annual return of this year, or rather, maybe annual return of last year or last 2 years. Maybe imagine someone who has not filed annual return of 2 years ago. That means you're already late. In other words, you're going to pay penalty fees and then still file it. So things like this happen. Okay, so it's good that you have the right guidance so that you can actually do the right the right thing. Staying compliant is very important. The right thing at the right time, so you won't go into paying penalties and some other things. So there are different kinds of compliances that you should have. The most important one, the one that has to do with your industry, the one that has to do with opening up a bank account, the one that has to do with all other things you may have to do with some government organizations and even clients too. They want to know that you are actually you actually have the various documentation licensing that you need to do what you need to do. So very, very important.